Hate to see it botched? Here's the best bits, a Botching It Up podcast short clip.
The two matches you gave me were from the early 90s, which is an era of wrestling you know that I absolutely avoid. Saying that, I really enjoyed these two matches, and you've opened my eyes up to a whole new era of wrestling.
This is a big learning experience for the both of us, isn't it? It's like on a TV game show where somebody learns how to be less of a prick, and so does the other person. They become friends.
Yeah, I feel like we both did a really good job of teaching the other person a new style of wrestling. Anyway, so you gave me Mr. Perfect versus Bret Hart from SummerSlam 91 and from King of the Ring 93. The first thing I want to mention is that in the 93 match, the commentators talked about the 91 match, and my mind was blown that they referenced a match that happened like 2.5 years earlier.
Right.
That's just like, whoa. But case in point is, on Raw last night, Charlotte beat Asuka, and they're about to have a storyline, and it feels like the storyline is going to be Asuka doesn't know how to beat Charlotte. She can't one-up her, and we're going to go for weeks or months of Asuka trying to finally get her win over Charlotte. But in December on a Raw, Asuka beat Charlotte. Right now, we can't remember a result that happened a couple of months ago that's important to a story. But back in the early 90s, we could remember a match that happened 2.5 years ago that's not even important to the story. Just a reference.
Yeah. And
It's fantastic. I love it.
they also, at certain points, very subtly in the actual match itself, called back to the SummerSlam 91 match.
Yeah, they did. He did the spot I loved the most was he would kick in the back of his knee, and Mr. Perfect would just like flim himself, like half doing a somersault onto the back of his neck. That happened in both matches. I don't like this style of wrestling mainly because I get annoyed if it's too slow and there isn't enough entertainment happening. I get bored.
Sure.
I'm a 21st century. I got no.
You don't necessarily look for the story within the moves if it's not being sold to you as a story.
Sure, yeah, exactly. I love stories in matches, but it has to be not obvious, but yeah, I guess somewhat obvious. But in this one, it was great because they were doing that style. I guess this was the new. I mean, it is called the new era back then, wasn't
It
it?
was just on the cusp of the new generation, this match.
That's it, the new generation. So I guess this is the new era of wrestlers kind of taking over from the 80s style. They've still got that lots of locks, holds, and submissions, but the pace of the match is faster and there's a lot more running around. And in the first match, it felt like quite a contemporary match. They hardly ever stopped. When they did, say, getting a headlock, Mr. Perfect would be tugging at his hair or doing something. He wasn't just sat in a headlock. There was always something small happening.
That's a big thing with both of these matches. I think every single move it means so much, and every spot feels like it's carefully plotted and like impeccably executed, even if it may not have been. Which is why I think that Bret Hart and Perfect are able to tell two fantastic stories over two matches without it feeling anything other than effortless. And why they had a promo before King of the Ring 93 where they just talk about one-upmanship, and they don't really matches that I love like this. They don't really need anything, you know. In a way, it is kind of like your spot fests. They don't have to have anything going in to have a good match coming out, but they create a very very basic story of competition just by the way that they move and utilize every small idea they work in subtly so that you might not even notice it. Sometimes I watch these matches and I haven't seen them for a couple of years, and I remember I see something new and tiny that they've done, or like a look on their face, or the way that they're positioned, which is just to me a fucking masterclass of presenting a story without overly bearing it out to the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, what's perfect about this is that neither one of them actually have a full storyline going into them, but it's Mr. Perfect and it's Bret Hart. Both of these characters want to be the best, or they are the best, and they have to prove it against each other. So the story is all the smaller things in the match.
Wait, it's also the ebb and flow for control as well. I think that's a major part of these matches that's stands them apart from a lot of other matches. It's not 50-50 booking like we know about these days. It's not you're gonna make both guys look strong. No, it's like every 5 seconds I've got control, no, you've got control. It makes the whole thing so fluid, and it makes it feel like it's a really big deal if one person or the other person comes out of this with a win, despite the fact that they're not actually angry with each other. As you already said, they just want to be the best.
Yeah.
And that actually makes, for me, a more engrossing story when you get matches like this than if, like, Bret Hart had run over Mr. Perfect's wife or whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't overbooked at all. So in the first match, SummerSlam 91, Bobby Heenan is on commentary and he's playing up that Mr. Perfect doesn't have to win this match. He could just get a count out. He could keep his Intercontinental Championship by just taking a count out. And that does actually play into the match a few times. There's a few times he leaves it out there until about 8 before rolling back in. And then at one point, he does that classic heel move of just walking to the back, and then Bret Hart has to go and fetch him and bring him back. He actually rips his singlet whilst doing that, and then his singlet's just half ripped, and he's pissed. Again, the small things that you said, he's pissed off about his singlet being ripped all the way through the match. He doesn't know what to do with the bit flapping around.
Yeah.
And the commentary doesn't really say anything about it, but they could have played on that he lost the match because he was concentrating too much on his singlet rather than Bret Hart.
Oh yeah, dude, if this was 2020, man, they'd have like a PowerPoint presentation in which the bad guy Mr. Perfect was talking about the singlet being taken off, you know.
Yeah,
It's just in this, it's just another moment.
yeah, there's layers to it, which is fantastic. And then at the end, Mr. Perfect's dropping low blows between Bret Hart's legs, and then Bret Hart catches it into an ankle lock, kind of folds his leg over and rolls over into the sharpshooter, and then stands up into the sharpshooter. It was maybe the best transition into that move I've ever seen. It was a
Yeah.
great finish.
I'm so glad that you like this match. To me, my favorite part is the start, where they go into this as a competition, and the first sort of 5 minutes is like a show of technical prowess where they're trying to one up each other until eventually it falls into like a quite extended period of hair pulling.
Yes.
Like, you don't see hair pulling to that extent anymore. And Bret Hart's like, yeah, I'm a face, but I'm still going to fucking pull your hair. And then it gets violent, and then Perfect leaves, and then the singlet's torn, and then it gets vicious. And it's just so perfectly paced, you know. This SummerSlam 1991 match is actually one of my favorite matches of all time. I've seen it so many times.
Like, share, and subscribe to keep it botched up, brother.